After the 2023 Game Awards nominees were announced, the term Xbox tax began to trend. And I wanted to talk about what this is, but also why there might actually be a sliver of misplaced truth here. So, Xbox tax is apparently the penalty that our industry has levied against Xbox for anything and everything they do. You see, Starfield only being nominated for Best RPG has nothing to do with the fact that Bethesda may have missed the mark. It's because it's an Xbox IP, and if PlayStation owned it, it would have swept the award show. Now, this conspiracy has been tossed around a lot, mostly by what I call Xbox Stan accounts, Twitter handles that exist for a single purpose: to praise the almighty green god that can do no wrong and spit on the blue draped peasants that dare to enjoy PlayStation. And just a fair note here, PlayStation Stan accounts also exist to do the exact same. And yes, while we should all agree the thought of a grown man tip-tapping away at his keyboard to explain why his favorite plastic box is better than yours is just as sad as it sounds, it's also important to understand why they believe this is true. And it's mostly because they're trapped in a room with others who believe the same thing. It's the backbone of any cult of personality. The evidence is presented in an echo chamber that completely ignores the counter evidence sitting right next to it that easily debunks it. And once that contradicting evidence is presented, it's either ignored, the goalposts begin to move, or old reliable whataboutism is activated. So let's look at a few examples. This is an image that you'll constantly see posted as proof that the Xbox tax is real. It's an excerpt from Metro UK's Hi-Fi Rush review, which I do have to know I wouldn't exactly call Metro UK a beacon for journalism. They have their fair share of problems, but primarily speaking on this issue, this portion underlined and read, quote, "The wasteland that has been the Xbox release schedule for the last few years limits the accolades we can give the game. And Xbox stands regularly use this as proof that this outlet gave Hi-Fi Rush a lower score just because of Xbox's surrounding game lineup, but that's just not true. That portion was taken out of context. The reviewer says Hi-Fi Rush is the best Xbox Series X exclusive, but infers that giving it that accolade is not saying much because at that time, it was the first Xbox Series X exclusive Microsoft published, which is technically not true because Flight Simulator launched in 2021, but his point of view is still understandable. And when that image is shared, the part where they gave Hi-Fi Rush a respectable 4 out of 5 is mysteriously missing. So it's similar to the claim that Starfield was snubbed at the Game Awards because it's an Xbox IP, except for the fact that Xbox earned a total 10 nominations, which ties them with PlayStation if you don't count the Best Adaptation Award, and Hi-Fi Rush was nominated in 5 categories. IGN has also found itself in the same crosshairs, accused of sleeping in PlayStation bed sheets when they gave Starfield a 7 out of 10, but that ignores the fact that Xbox games are regularly celebrated at IGN, and Xbox has earned a perfect 10 3 years in a row: Microsoft Flight Simulator in 2020, Forza Horizon 5 in 2021, and Pentiment in 2022. And before I forget, Forza Horizon 5 was named IGN's Game of the Year, becoming the first ever racing or sports title to earn that award. Now, the current Xbox tax review evidence is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 getting such low scores right after Xbox closed their Activision Blizzard acquisition. You see, just like Starfield, it has nothing to do with the game. It's getting low scores because Xbox now owns the IP, but not only does that ignore all the other franchises that earned high marks after Xbox purchased them, but Deathloop is kind of like the smoking gun here. Released 6 months after Xbox's Bethesda acquisition was completed, it earned 9 Game Awards nominations, including Game of the Year, and multiple perfect scores, including a 10 from IGN. So this conspiracy that the entire industry is working against Xbox is just that, a conspiracy. But this video began circulating, and the poster claims it's proof that even back in E3 2018, Xbox's Major Nelson was aware that Xbox was measured differently than the rest of the industry. Check it out.
I think you're not getting the credit you deserve this generation.
We never will.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen this. We know that there's a different yardstick for the different developers.
Right.
You know, the Nintendo guys are great. They, you know, I've got my Switch right here in case I want to play Fortnite.
Yep.
So, I mean, those guys are great. I talked to Reggie the other day. The guys over at PlayStation, they're doing they're executing. They've had tremendous success this time around.
Now, Major Nelson would go on to explain that maybe it's due to the fact that Xbox is Microsoft and people connect it with the boring corporate frustrations of having to use Windows and all the anxiety that comes with. So Xbox stands believe that the term different yardstick means that Xbox is not treated the same as Nintendo and PlayStation. And there is some truth here, but not in the way that these Stan accounts would want you to believe. I think he's referring to Xbox's late entry into the gaming market. Xbox is the kid joining your friend group in the third year of high school. They need to be way more likable, way more charming, even funnier, just to establish a baseline. But your current friends also need to become much worse before you would ever consider Xbox your best friend. That's why Major Nelson praised the Nintendo Switch and what PlayStation is doing. He's saying, yeah, not only do we have to ensure we get more hits at the plate, these guys are still stepping up and hitting home runs. See, when Microsoft first announced the Xbox in 2000 and entered the game console market, it entered firmly in fourth place behind three Japanese giants, Sega, Nintendo, and Sony. But let's focus on the two that remained. Many gamers who are now active in the gaming discussion space carry an attachment to those two brands simply because of their head start. Now, Xbox's impact on our industry is undeniable. It pioneered the connected online multiplayer infrastructure we enjoy today, among many industry sculpting innovations such as gamer tags, achievements, backwards compatibility, Game Pass, and business pivots that changed the way publishers monetize their ecosystems, such as charging a fee to play online and downloadable add-on content. But even with all that, Xbox has remained in last place, not just in sales, but within gaming pop culture. And part of that reasoning is out of their hands. As I was working on this story, I was reminded of Phil Spencer's interview with Kinda Funny's Xcast earlier this year, where he spoke about Xbox being in third place, and he said this.
We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. So when you go and you're building on Xbox, we want our Xbox community to feel awesome. But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. Like 90% of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystems. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that we are in today. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen.
Now, at the time, I remember feeling like this was insane for Phil to, in a sense, almost admit that there was nothing they could do, but Phil was right. He was referring to brand loyalty. To convert a PlayStation fan over to Xbox, two things need to happen. Xbox needs to present a better overall product, including much more compelling exclusives, and PlayStation needs to make a product so bad their fans lose all trust in the brand. Take Samsung and their Android phones, for example. There's nothing that company can do to convert the majority of lifelong iPhone users. They can use a better screen, better camera, better software, foldable tech, make it cheaper. It won't matter. Another example is the Epic Game Store. It doesn't matter what they do. Steam was there first. They haven't stopped innovating, and the loyalty to that brand is just way too strong. They can give away as many games as they want, and even if they match them feature for feature, it wouldn't make a major difference. But even with all that I've said, Xbox isn't innocent in all of this. They've made a lot of mistakes, and unlike their main competitors, the quality, quantity, and value of their IP has been all over the place at best, and their lack of homegrown IP has had a lasting effect. But Microsoft has leveraged their greatest asset to turn the ship around, and that asset is money. building a massive cloud infrastructure and focusing on software distribution instead of hardware, not worrying about how you access the game as long as you're playing it. They realized that creating IP and characters with as much brand value and loyalty as, say, God of War or Zelda was impossible for them this late in the game, and gambling on striking lightning with a new IP was not a smart investment. So they just went out and bought the IP and characters that already carry that nostalgic value, such as Crash Bandicoot, Elder Scrolls, Call of Duty, and Warcraft, just to name a few. So is the Xbox tax real? No. There isn't a deep-seated industry-wide conspiracy against Xbox, and the overwhelming majority of evidence presented for an Xbox tax is easily debunked. Now, while they have had an uphill battle to climb since Bill Gates first announced their entry into the gaming space, it's undeniable that right now, Xbox is in the best position it has ever been. Like it if you liked it. Subscribe if you loved it. Please leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this topic. Thanks so much for watching.